The book of Genesis emerged during a pivotal period in ancient Israel's history, likely compiled during the post-exilic era when the Jewish people were reconstructing their national and religious identity after displacement and exile. The story of Jacob's encounter at Bethel in Genesis 28 served as a powerful reminder of God's covenant faithfulness during times of uncertainty and transition. In the ancient Near Eastern world, sacred pillars or standing stones, called Matzevah in Hebrew, were common religious markers that designated places where divine encounters had occurred. While later Israelite law would prohibit certain types of sacred pillars associated with Canaanite worship, Jacob's action of setting up and anointing a pillar represented an authentic, spontaneous response to a divine revelation. Jacob's journey occurred in a world where family relationships determined one's security and identity, making his flight from home particularly precarious. Having deceived his father Isaac and alienated his brother Esau, Jacob was essentially a refugee, vulnerable and alone as he traveled toward Haran. This context of displacement and vulnerability frames Jacob's encounter with God at Bethel, highlighting how divine revelation often occurs at moments of greatest human need. Genesis 28:10 through 22 captures one of the most profound spiritual encounters in the Bible. The passage begins with Jacob leaving Beersheba, heading toward Haran, a journey of both physical and spiritual significance. Verse 11 tells us that he came to a certain place and stayed there for the night because the sun had set. This seemingly mundane detail reveals Jacob's vulnerability. Unlike modern travelers with hotel reservations and GPS navigation, Jacob found himself alone in the wilderness as darkness fell. Many of us can relate to this feeling of isolation and uncertainty when life circumstances force us into unfamiliar territory, whether through job loss, relationship breakdown, or health crises. In this vulnerable state, Jacob experiences an extraordinary dream. He sees a ladder set up on the earth, the top of it reaching to heaven, and the angels of God were ascending and descending on it. This vivid imagery represents the connection between heaven and earth, the divine and human realms. Above this ladder stands the Lord, who identifies himself as the God of Abraham, your father, and the God of Isaac, God, then reaffirms the covenant promises, land, descendants, and blessing to all nations. But perhaps most powerfully, God addresses Jacob's immediate fears with the promise, know that I am with you and will keep you wherever you go. Jacob's response upon waking reveals his astonishment. Surely the Lord is in this place, and I did not know it. This exclamation captures a universal human experience, the sudden realization that God has been present all along in places we deemed ordinary or even desolate. In our busy, distracted lives, we often fail to recognize divine presence in our everyday surroundings. Jacob names the place Bethel, meaning house of God, acknowledging that any location can become sacred when we encounter God there. The setting up of the pillar in verses 18 through 19 represents Jacob's desire to memorialize this encounter. He takes the stone he had used as a headrest, sets it up as a pillar, and pours oil on it, a ritual act of consecration. In our contemporary context, we might not erect physical pillars, but we still create memorials to significant spiritual moments through journals, artwork, music, or even digital media. These tangible reminders serve as anchors during times of doubt or difficulty. Jacob's vow in verses 20 through 22 reveals both the conditional nature of his early faith and his first steps toward genuine commitment. He essentially says, if God will be with me and keep me, then the Lord shall be my God. While this may seem like spiritual bargaining, it reflects the honest journey of someone moving from intellectual knowledge about God to personal relationship with God. Many people today follow a similar path, gradually transitioning from skepticism or conditional belief to deeper trust. For us today, Jacob's experience at Bethel reminds us that divine encounters often occur when we least expect them, particularly during times of transition or crisis. It challenges us to remain attentive to God's presence in seemingly ordinary places and circumstances. It affirms the value of creating tangible reminders of our spiritual experiences, and it validates the journey of faith as a process that often begins with tentative, conditional steps before maturing into deeper commitment. That's the lesson for this week. Have a great week.